Hey everybody, this is Jay Fitzloff. I'm associate producer at Vigil Games, and you are about to see The Wailing Host. This is at the end of the Abyssal Plains. It's the second big world that you face in Darksiders, and this is kind of pretty much one of the end guys you face. He's close to my heart because I'm a big fan of Call of Cthulhu, and obviously this looks like a Cthulhu type monster you face, and also you can see he's not a small guy. He's gargantuan compared to a lot of the bosses, but that's kind of thing we went for in Darksiders 2. We wanted to, I mean, you're Death, you're a horseman of the apocalypse, you're obviously a fearsome person in your own right, so how do we create something you fear? And we did that a lot through sense of scale, where you're fighting something, you're a creature that's bigger than life, so we have to have you fighting something that's just gargantuan. So you can see that a lot of our bosses, we took some different approaches. This guy, I like to say there's kind of two different bosses types. Some are what I call puzzle bosses, meaning it doesn't matter how tough you are, you have to go through a certain kind of steps to defeat them. And other guys are just, you defeat them in a traditional combat manner, where it's just by beating the crap out of them. The Wailing Host kind of walks the fine line between those two, between just a regular fight and a puzzle boss, in that there's a pattern to his attacks, and as you fight him, strange things are happening, and even though it's a combat-centric fight, there's still a puzzle element to it. We have to figure out, like, for example, right now, he's retreated. You have this kind of pillar of energy, and all these ghostly skeletons are appearing out of it, where I think, obviously I know what's happening, but somebody new to the game would be like, all right, how do I get to this next step, or how do I make him reappear? In this case, it is by beating the crap out of some skeletons. You can see some other abilities are being used here. You got Ghost Hand, which is always handy for small enemies, for pulling them, Death Grip, we changed the name, I always get those confused, but it's good for pulling small enemies towards you and trim up. For a big guy like the Wailing Host himself, it would pull Death towards him, which is handy if you're at a distance from him and need to close that gap really fast. You can always use Death Grip to get in there and make your attacks. And now he switches it up where you'll be fighting him and the minor enemies at the same time. The reason you're fighting the Wailing Host is you've been clued in from the King of the Dead here in the Abyssal Plains that to get to the Well of Souls, there's one person that knows the secret in a place called the City of the Dead, and the Wailing Host is basically blocking your way to that city. So that's the reason why you're facing off with him. And like I said before, this is kind of near the end of the second zone we have in the game, which is, I was going to say, it might be the biggest. It's a tie for that in the Makish area, but this is pretty much what you're seeing is almost the climax to the whole world itself. And you kind of can see how you have to play to his attack. So once he does that swipe attack, you can get in and make attacks. Once he does the pounds, you can dodge out of the way and get in, but you always have to keep a sense of what he's going to do next. And then when he does that move, where both his hands are down, you can make attacks in the hands. Or if you're on the inside of it, you can actually attack him on his tentacles as well. This is a pretty fearsome fight, but at this point in the game, we have the leveling and the loot system, so you should be a pretty high level at this point. I'll take a shot in the dark. It would probably be somewhere between 12 and 15. If you're lucky, you have a possessed weapon that you've leveled up. We have possessed weapons, you feed them other weapons, and they go up levels. So you should have a good sense of equipment. What's interesting about this guy, too, is, well, with the builds you can do in Darksiders, you can go combat heavy, you can go spellcasting heavy. We have two skill trees. The Necromancer one's the more spellcasting one. I was doing a playthrough over the weekend, and I was just kind of experimenting. I pretty much went all spellcasting. I was always summoning zombies, murder crows, and having them do all the work for me. It worked great to a point until I got to a guy like here in the Wailing Host, where the zombies weren't tough enough to close the gap on him. He was able to crush him instantly, and the damage they were doing was minuscule compared to what we needed to do. So, you can always build your own characters. You'll never get stymied by the way you've built your character, but this is definitely one of those guys where, I was purposely always going spellcasting, but at the time of this, I was kind of cursing myself, like, wish I had a combat ability, like a teleport slash, so I could get through this and just able to get out of the way of attacks or take care of business a lot faster. So, but it'll be the opposite too. If you've done an all-combat build, there'll be some where you wish you had some zombies that could explode on somebody and take care of some problems for you. Schwarzenegger to say his line from Predator right now. And that part you saw with the cutscene with the kind of the quick time event press B, we do that during the boss fights is just for the big finishes or the intermediaries, but there's never a battle that just is all quick time events. You know, we're an action game, a combat game. We want to make sure you're actively involved in it. Those are kind of the cues for the player to let you know you finished the guy or passed a certain phase. But you know, also they look really cool when you can do stuff like that too. So it's always fun for our animators to get to do those big finishes or those intermediary phases. You can jump up and attack them too when you just like duck down like that if you're in close in on them. And there we go. That's the end of the Wailing Host.